Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Walk the ball. Let's Taylor.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by one of our staff writers, Scott Geirman. And we've got breaking news on a Saturday morning. The Dodgers have made a trade. Well, no, not the trade you're probably thinking of. This was a trade for a reliever from the Cubs, and not that reliever from the Cubs, a different reliever. The Dodgers added Chris Martin, 36-year-old right-hander. This will be his 7th team in the past 8 seasons. If that name sounds familiar to you Dodger fans, and you're wondering why, it's because he spent the past 2 years with the Braves and gave up what might be one of the biggest home runs in franchise history, Cody Bellinger's go-ahead home run in Game 7 of the NLCS. And so the question that I know I was wondering, many fans, I'm sure you were wondering, that aren't following Chris Martin's career every single day, is this guy any good? Well, Scott, I would say the answer to that question is complicated. He has a 4.31 ERA. That doesn't get you excited, but a 3.02 FIP, which is nice. He's got the highest strikeout rate of his career, 87th percentile, the lowest walk rate since 2019. That puts him in the 100th percentile, and yet 7th percentile for hard hit rate, 17th percentile for average exit velocity. He's a guy who throws a lot of pitches, 6 different pitches. The fastball has come down as far as usage. The cutter rate is up. So before we get into the cost, Zach McKinstry, when you first saw the news, Scott, that Chris Martin is on his way to the Dodgers, what was your immediate reaction?
Knowing that I've seen him struggle, quite a bit this year, just on the numbers without even having to look at it, he struggled. It was one of those moves where I was like, McKinstry was a guy that was obviously expendable. It's Chris Martin with his, super high K rate, low walk rate, which is incredible. That's the thing that can plague you the most, is that it's a guy that there might be a tweak that they can, work on and make him really a usable piece. So it's like there's no downside to it, considering McKinstry could have just been moved. But I mean, am I going to say I love it? Am I intrigued? Yeah. I don't know if I love it, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, McKinstry, and again, we're going to get to him in a second, but just staying on Martin for a moment, it's interesting because I think one of the pieces is we know Andrew Friedman doesn't like to trade for relievers, and yet the Dodgers have a pretty incredible track record of having guys come over and immediately get better. And when I say immediately, maybe not his first appearance, but within a week or two, you would expect the Dodgers are going to look at a guy who throws 6 different pitches, and they're probably going to say, these are your 2 or 3 good ones, get rid of the other 3, and here's how we're going to make your cutter better, or here's how we're going to make your fastball better. We're going to have you throw it in the right places, whatever it might be, because this is a guy who's had success. Like, you look at his numbers in that 2020 year, obviously a shortened year. I think he had a 1.00 ERA. He's had a number of seasons in the mid to low 3s, and so he has it in him. The profile is obviously what the Dodgers like, a guy that's striking out 11.5 batters per 9 while walking just 1.15. So, you do the math. It's basically like a 10-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio, that's what the Dodgers want. When you have a relief pitcher coming in late in the game, you want a guy who can throw strikes, who's not going to put guys on. The flip side to this whole deal is McKinstry. You described him as expendable, and I'm sure there's going to be people that hear that and are pretty surprised at that. But I actually think I agree with you, because if you look at some of the other pieces, James Outman, by the way, reportedly the guy that's going to be taking his spot on the 40-man roster. And normally I would say, well, who would I rather have, Outman or McKinstry? McKinstry's stock has taken a hit. Here's some numbers from McKinstry. He had a good year at AAA this season. An OPS over 900, was hitting 335. But the crazy stat, and this kind of tells you maybe what the Dodgers think about him, he had 39 games on the active roster, and just twice did he have more than 1 plate appearance. And one of those 2 was an 0-for-3 2 walk-up performance on Thursday night. And yet this is a guy just, a year ago, 2021, it seemed like he was going to be a breakout guy. He was a prospect that was on the rise, late-round pick, people were excited about. He had an 883 OPS in March and April with 3 home runs in 17 games, but then he strains his oblique, he misses 6 weeks. He comes back, does all right in June, but then in 19 games in July, hits just 111, striking out a third of the time. And that was pretty much the last we heard. So I guess I would say I'm surprised that McKinstry, my initial reaction was like, whoa, Zach McKinstry. But the more I think about it, we didn't really see him play effective defense anywhere. And so even if he became sort of an average bat, I think the question was, where was he going to play? Like, he technically could play second base and third base and left field and right field. But if he doesn't play any of those positions well, he's not truly a Chris Taylor type.
Yeah. So, obviously, he's Trace Thompson has had overwhelming success against right-handed pitching, which is phenomenal. That's amazing to see. And they're not like, he's definitely not a guy that's going to hit lefties well. And, perhaps they're going to make a move for something like that. And with Edwin Rios on his rehab assignment, that's probably a lot what drove them to make that move, that there's, there's enough guys that can come up and fill that spot. And yeah, man, he's just really hasn't really panned out, and he doesn't play, just like you said, anywhere overwhelmingly, to be on the roster for defense. And that's that's really what his role would be.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, we'll get to Outman because I think Outman fills that role defensively. But I think it's a great point that they've got a guy in Trace that's hitting righty, so McKinstry a lefty. It's like, what's his role? Jake Lamb is going to be a better offensive option. And we talked about, by the way, the Dodgers were going to have to move some of these guys on the back end of the 40-man roster. So that's one spot that opens up. Obviously, Martin fills it, but he's on a one-year deal. The question I want to ask on this one before we get just briefly to Outman and wrap this up, do you think the Dodgers make any more moves in the bullpen? To me, when I think about this, I think this is kind of going to be it. I look at a postseason roster, you get 9 relief pitchers and 4 starters theoretically. And it feels like the Dodgers have a group of 12 or 13 guys already competing for those spots. I would say there's 5 guys who are kind of locks to be in the postseason roster. Kimbrel, nobody's going to like hearing that after Friday night, but if he's healthy, he'll be there. Blake Trinan, who we're expecting back, the news has been progressing positively. If he's around, he will be on there. I would put Evan Phillips, Yency Almonte, and Caleb Ferguson as the 5 guys that, unless something dramatic happens, either injury-wise or just the slump of all slumps, they'll be there. I would add Martin to that list. I don't think you trade Zach McKinstry for a guy you're not expecting to be on the postseason roster. I think Vesia and Gratterall have enough of a track record to say that they probably belong there. Well, all of a sudden, we're at 8 guys. We haven't gotten into the extra starters. What happens with Buehler, with May, with Heaney, with White, or injured guys like Canely, Duffy, and Gonzalez? And so even if Vesia and Gratterall are on the outside, if you've got Vesia, Gratterall, Buehler, May, Heaney, White, Canely, Duffy, Gonzalez all competing for 2-3 spots on the postseason roster, I just don't see how there's room for another move in the bullpen. Do you agree?
I totally agree. Yeah, just like you said, we haven't even gotten to the starters that they could possibly push. There's a lot of guys that can get pushed into the bullpen. Dustin May, we don't know how much. A lot of these guys are going to be on a pitch count. We know they're working with Andrew Heaney on a pitch count, and he's showed an incredible ability to miss bats. And that would be fantastic in the bullpen. That would be something that we have to consider. So another lefty could be, I don't know if he'll be in a long man role, which would be great. That's something that has been really overlooked. The guy gets on a roll, you don't have to pull him. You can go multiple. Dustin May, same exact thing. I don't know how much his workload. I'm sure they're going to give him an opportunity to start, but just like you said, there's some guys that are going to get the push in, and then it becomes a number crunch. And you don't want to trade for, it's not that you don't want to trade for a top end arm, but if the need isn't overwhelmingly there, you don't want to have to push a guy who's probably deserving of a spot out of it just because, it's just, there's not the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Briefly, on James Outman, James Outman reportedly getting called up to take McKinstry's spot because they traded a bat for a pitcher. They've got to add a bat to the roster, and a pitcher's got to come off. Outman's a guy who has not played in the majors, so he could be making his major league debut unless he's on the McKinstry plan where you're just on the active roster and never play. Yep. He's a 25-year-old, added to the 40-man roster this offseason to be protected from a Rule 5 draft that never ended up happening. Had an .815 OPS at AAA this season, a good walk rate, 13.4%, 50% of his base hits went for extra bases. And that was after getting called up from AA, where he had a .946 OPS with 16 home runs in 68 games. And the thing that, if you've watched Outman in spring training, the defense is there. Like, he has the athleticism to play a legit major league ready defensive outfielder. Whether the bat sort of comes along, again, he was hitting .225 in AAA, but had a great walk rate, so the OPS was fine. I don't think he's getting called up for his bat. He might not even be there long, but any thoughts you have on Outman getting called up, potentially making his debut?
It's just going to be, it'll be good to have someone coming in late game. If that's what, if he gets a start here or there, that's fantastic. But if it's going to be good to have a major league ready outfielder step in, and you won't have to worry about his defensive reliability. So I'm excited to see that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, we appreciate you joining us. Let us know what you think below. A few days left till the trade deadline. We're going to have breaking news videos like this throughout if the Dodgers make any moves. Real quick, let me make a quick announcement. If you're on the live show last night, you remember seeing this. But this upcoming Monday, the opening night of the Giants series, Dodger Blue, we are hosting a virtual watch party. with some partners of ours called Playback. Basically, what's going to happen is we're all going to get to hop in a room. There's going to be a chat. There's going to be a stage. And the game is going to be on. All of us watching it at the exact same time. Nobody's going to be 10 seconds ahead or 10 seconds behind. But this is going to be a private event. So if you would like to join us, and we'd love to have you join us, make sure you are following at DodgerBlue1958 on social media. We'll blast it out come Monday. Then we'll direct message all of those who express interest with the link. We do have limited spots. So make sure you're following us on Twitter, on Instagram, because that's where we're sending it out. If you don't find it, find me on Twitter. We'll get you the link. But Monday night against the Giants, I believe that's a 6:45 first pitch. Going to be a fun one there. So make sure you join us. Hey, that's Scott Geirman. My name's Jeff Spiegel. As always, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Clayton Kershaw on the mound tonight, and we'll see you next time.